Good morning, everyone, from Dunrovin Ranch in Lolo, Montana. I'm excited to bring you Brandon Carpenter again today from his ranch, his Hashknife Ranch, which is located, actually has two places. One is in central Montana and one is in eastern Montana. And this particular place that he's going to be broadcasting from today is in central Montana. It's the ranch that his parents owned and that he and his sons now operate. If you remember last week, I asked some questions of him when I saw him riding his horse to cattle, and I mentioned that this was often a good time for training, and he agreed that the bay that he was riding was a young filly that he was training for a client. And so I think today Brandon's going to take us through some of the ways in which he does train those horses. And this is one of the things I have most liked about having Brandon train our horses, is that they are put on a job. He trains them so that they are good to work with cattle and good to go out in almost any conditions and deal with all kinds of different emergencies. So they have to get used to big equipment, to different kinds of animals, to going out in all kinds of weather. And it just makes for a really good, versatile horse. So with that, sit back and enjoy with me listening to Brandon and watching him work with this young filly. Can you take it away, James?
Hey there. A couple weeks ago we talked about how horse movement was important when we were cutting some of the cows out with this mare to do some of the preg testing. So I thought we'd kind of put that together a little bit today when Suzanne was asking some of the questions about it, about how we do it, what we do, why, and some of the advantages too, why we get these horses to move on their front end or the hind end. And along with that, I'm going to just show you what she'll do overall, because she's finished with her training and ready to go back to her owner. And she's a 6-year-old filly, and we just finished up with her. She was brought to us late July, and so now she's all ready to go. All right, so I'm going to show you what she can do, some of the things on the ground with her that's important for her to do. And she, just to warn you ahead of time, she's snotty. She likes to be in control and in charge, and she wants to make all of the decisions, and she can't. If she does, then you've got a horse that's out of control. But I need to be able to pick these feet up, pound on them, bang on them, and have her stand with it just fine, front and rear, like that. Whoa, you stand. Boom. Good, good. Got she flips her tail. She's just a spoiled brat. But you can work with spoiled brats, and she still has to do what you want to do. I can mount and dismount from either side on her, and I can kind of bang her in the hind end with my foot if I need to. If I go over like that, she has no issue with that. And she will roll a saddle quite easily just because of the conformation she has. So one wants to be aware of that. Get up on her. She'll roll that saddle around, but she needs to stand here as I ask her to stand. Loose rein, and you see she's licking and chewing a little bit, which means she's like, well, okay, I'll do what you want for now. I understand what you want. I know. And she will reach back sometimes and try to bite you. She just always wants to fight, always wants to argue with you, so you have to work with that. You can't allow that biting, kicking, striking, pushing, but you got to be aware that that's what she does. So with that, I'll kind of show you. She may fight this, and if she does, we have to put her in her place. I want her to stand. Good girl. Oop. And make her stand right in the spot she's in. She's going to, just like this, just fight me a little bit until she figures out that she can't have her way. and make the decisions. That it's all up to me to make the decisions. All right. Good girl. As I say, she loves to fight. She loves to argue and bicker. She's kind of one of those mean schoolgirl playground bosses who thinks that she can do whatever she wants, and everybody has to listen to her. She is clearly wrong. But as long as she complies with what I'm asking, and that she's okay with all of this, then we are just fine. You notice we got a loose rein here. I really have to correct her or hold her back. There we go. Good. Good girl. All right. I'm going to climb down and I'll show you what you'll do with a little bit of rope work next. I'm going to tie her reins up now and show you what she's capable of with the rope. And she should have really no issue with this. Now, I haven't worked her a lot with the rope. Well, I should say I've worked her, but I've made it so she is tolerating it. But she'll never be a rope horse. She's not. The owner will never do that, and so we don't worry so much about giving a lot of work, like dragging a lot of things, like drag some calves or something like that. That's just simply not what she's going to be used for. So I'm not going to waste a lot of the owner's time or my time or the horse's time doing that. But she needs to be familiar with rope enough that she's not going to spook, not going to be a problem. Good girl. Good girl. I haven't done this in a long time, since the groundwork, really. Good girl. Good girl. Woo, woo. And then she moves off. And you notice she wasn't spooked, she just wants to walk off. Again, one of those little character flaws that I'm not thrilled about with her. And I have worked and worked and worked with her. In fact, this is kind of how she'll throw a fit or have a temper tantrum, is that if you tie her up, she will stand with that right foot and paw, and just continually paw, because she doesn't like to be not doing what she wants to do. So this is not atypical. It's a little annoying, but it doesn't hurt anything. Let's see how she spooks with putting a lariat around her. Girl. Girl. I want them to not be afraid of this, and I don't want them to blow up. What I do want them to do is realize what's there and turn and think their way out of this and spin their way around and not buck and hurt themselves, but they know that it's there and how they can get out of it when they feel the pressure. Good girl. All right. I think what I'll do is I'll get myself all canoided here, and I will mount up and do a tiny little bit of rope work, and then we'll work on some of the footwork and leg work and the control that we've got on her back. All right. Okay. All right, same thing, we're just going to mount up now. And she does not like this rope coming at her on the ground. And this is very, very typical of a horse when you very first start training them. They don't know what's out there and what's moving towards them. So they'll back off of it, and she really has gotten not that much better, but it's not that she fears it. She just, again, wants to make an issue. Stand here with a loose rein, give this thing a toss. And she's looking at it, that's fine. Good girl. Good girl. You want her to tolerate it. And she's doing better. I kind of expected her actually to kind of move off and back away from it, because that's typically what she does. But as she's getting better and better in her training, this is what she's supposed to do. So that's good. It's been a day or two since I've done this, and we'll see how she does now with ropes tangled around her feet. Easy. There. This is really important. I've got both hind legs, and I got a loose rein, reasonably loose till I really put some pressure on it, but I'm not having to really hork her back. And there we go. See if we can get her to step out of one of those. There we go. Now I'll just do one foot, bring it up around her hind end and up between her legs. Same thing. I don't expect her to like this, but she needs to tolerate it. As you can see, I've got really mostly loose rein, but I'm ready to pull it up if I needed to. And I'm putting some pressure on that. Usually when I try to rope my horse, I'm really bad at it. You don't want it to happen, it will. But this isn't bad either. This just shows you that she's okay and comfortable with that around her feet. Good girl. Good girl. And then there's always the dreaded rope under the tail. Let's see if we can get that to happen. To get her to move out, she'll flare her tail a little bit and pull it up. There we go. And same thing. Now that's kind of assaulting her a little bit, because there's some pretty tender areas of her body right there, that rope. But I can do it from a standstill, or I can move around. And same thing. Not a problem. All right. So what we'll do is we'll kind of cut this segment out short, and then I will start working on some of the reining issues that we talked about earlier, about control on the front end and the hind end and why it's important. All right, good girl. So there's a couple of different kinds of reining. There's what we call plow reining or direct rein, where the horse turns because you're turning their head around. And you're just letting, in this case, the left rein pull tight, the right rein is loose. You can stop both hands and then bring her back, make her back up by very gentle, even pressure with both reins on the bit. And you'll notice when I back up, I lean back just a little bit. Another cue, and I'm wiggling my feet a little bit, my toes. It's a signal to her, just another cue that I want you to back up. Now, what we like to do with the direct rein, it takes two hands. Or if you're really good, you can work one hand, but it's very impractical. But what I like to have these horses finished at is a neck rein. So instead of pulling with this left rein, I'm just going to simply push the neck over with the right rein so that we go to the left. And take a circle that way, take a circle this way, and you notice the rein that's not in use is also hanging loose. Back. Good girl. And what I'm also doing at the same time, when you see my feet setting here, I can turn this horse by doing this. She feels that, and then she starts to move. So I can put one leg off of her, my right is away from her, my left is on her, and I can move her. The same way I can do this side. And notice how her feet will mostly cross. See how they'll cross over? So that I can get a turn just out of the front end instead of going in a big circle, and where she would be doing something like this, where she's mostly moving forward. I can put the leg on her, and now she goes to the side. That's better. Good girl. And that's moving the front end. Now we can do the same thing with the hind end and still using my legs, but I just pull my leg back just ever so much, and I can keep her from going forward, and that's what I'll do. But I'm going to use this leg and confuse her a little bit. There we go. And now she's going to turn with the hind end around and kind of pivot on these fronts. There we go. Good girl. And you notice I'm really not having to direct her head. I'm just keeping her from going forward or from one side to the other. I'm just kind of keeping the front end static while the hind end comes around. A lot of reasons why you can do that or want to do that with your horse. You may need to move them away or towards something on the hind end if they're not quite parallel to it, or if you're on a trail and you see a cut bank coming off, and sometimes they'll just lose their mind sometimes. They're just wandering and looking things over, and you'll get a little close to the edge and you're like, I'm just going to push this horse over a little bit as you're walking, and it does that. So there's all kinds of reasons. If I'm going through a gate the same way, then we're going to pivot on that front and pushing that hind end around, or hind legs could be crossing. And I'm just kind of containing her. I'm not really moving her or giving her much direction on the reining portion of this when I'm working the hind end. I just don't want her to go forward or to start turning off of the pivot on the front end. So this leg work is very, very important, and it's the better you get at it, then the more refined, the more subtle the horse listens to you, and you're not making really overt, great gestures. And it takes a while to get here. But what I have to do when I begin this, if the question comes up, we'll head that off, is that I'm going to teach her to neck rein by first putting the rein on. She doesn't respond, and then I do the neck or the direct rein and put leg on her at the same time, so that she understands I can bump that around a little bit. So quite easy, and it's just a matter of starting as one small thing, adding to it, continuing it, getting that habit built up. And then pretty soon I don't have to direct rein, I can just neck rein around. All right, and we're going to show you now, I think, how we put this together for some of the corral work. You saw that with the cows, where I would move back and forth before in order to move them or move her from side to side. We'll show you how that works with some gate work. All right, we're going to add a little something to this. My son Braden just brought up this issue, and how it looks from the top of the horse. So when you use a neck rein, it's pretty easy to make it more like a direct rein. If you ask her to do a left turn where you put the right rein on her, you want to bring that rein up far so it makes almost like it's a 90-degree angle between the rein and that neck. And see how that comes over. And she turns nice and gently. Very good. Stops, comes back, and she dropped her head like she should in a stop. Now, if I ask the same thing, and I was not really good about clear communication, and I pull this rein back, which a novice will do oftentimes, and I do this, she's going to turn, but look there, look what happens with her neck. Now it's almost like it's a direct rein pulling, and it really confuses them. So you don't want to just pull back and towards the left side. You want that rein up here so as good clear communication in what you're asking your employee to do here. So very good point. Like to see that, and it's a great clarification on how that will affect them negatively, especially early on. She hasn't got hundreds of rides on hers, so this is something that is still, she's well started. We just need to be very diligent about doing the right things with her to continue that. So as a horse gets more and more finished, you can, and she's starting to get there, as you saw before, I can just lay that kind of sloppily on there and she'll come around. So one of the things that in that progressive training, how it really starts out slow and with really good communication, really clear. This is what I want you to do. I don't want you to have a direct rein and come backwards. Ooh, back. And I'm not looking for this, because look what happens. Now she won't move, and it's a direct rein around. So a really good point to bring up, and I thank Braden for that. And she does too, obviously. Okay, I'm going to show you how we put this together with a neck rein, using one hand that's free, and my legs and my body cues, and putting her body in position so that I can manipulate a gait from horseback. There we go. See, I can get her to move closer, open it up, get her to turn, step away from it, and around it, and a girl without tearing my knee off. Step over, pushing my foot against her ribs. This one, and we'll do this one. And this is a tight corner. Well, I have to reach up, but she has to stand for me. And I can do one of two things. I can come to it, or I can come this way. Now I'm going the opposite way I did. Which is fine. And bring that hind end around. And then get her to move sideways again for me, the side pass. Right up in position, but I'm right tight against this other fence. And her hind end is against it. I don't care. She needs to be able to do that. And then I'm going to turn her around here again. I got a hand free and I can swap hands. Open this up, back her up a bit, step her over, come around, the neck rein. That a girl. Good girl. And my whole idea is that you don't let go of your gait. You got that gait in your hand the whole time, you're controlling it. She kind of brought her hind end out, so I want to put her hind end back in here. This is a matter of discipline against that other gate. I'm going to fight me on it. There we go. Good girl. Good girl. All right. Now, all right. Hopefully you've got to see a little bit of the overall, what we're looking for, kind of those final goals all put together, but it takes a long time to get there. Sometimes longer with other horses, sometimes shorter. But the whole idea is that all of them will be as sound and solid as she is and do what you ask, anytime you ask. And they're consistent in that. And she'll get better and better and better the more consistent the owner is. And this is really a good thing in a way. There's a lot of times when I will leave one little portion of the training kind of incomplete. Like, for instance, instead of finishing her with a side pass like this, and she's okay, she's pretty good, but she's done a decent amount of gait work. Ooh, that a girl, good girl. I will leave this part so it's pretty shaky, but I will teach the owner what they need to do, because this is something that they can work on, control the horse, and make the horse listen to them as just one item in which they are continuing to train the horse themselves. And it's something that it's not going to alter the safety of the horse, it just enhances them. So having these small things like her with her personality and being kind of a little bit pushy and chargy and just wanting to do what she wants to do is a good thing for the owner to be able to correct and continue that training and make her a super solid horse. She's really good now. She's got a beautiful lope. She's really nice to ride that way. So all in all, I'm happy with her. Hope the owner will be too. All right, everybody. All right, hopefully you've got to see a little bit of the overall, what we're looking for, kind of those final goals all put together.
Brandon, that was wonderful. I just greatly enjoyed watching those videos. And I'm not sure that people understand the utility of all of this. And as I was saying before you got on, one of the best things about having you train our horses is that you train them to work in all kinds of circumstances. And it may seem to people that a guest ranch owner would not need that level of training, but they would be very wrong. And I'm just going to mention a couple of things like the rope. No, we don't rope cattle, but I have ponied kids in the mountains in the bob. I have found things that I have brought home and roped them on the back of my horse. I mean, you have no idea what you're going to encounter. And that level of training is just essential in the backcountry.
Yeah, my dad, Tex, coined a phrase. I mean, I said it from the time I can ever remember, that we have to have a using horse. Yeah. And people have copied that and written articles. It's like, well, that's kind of a compliment, I guess, if they're not mocking you. But, you know, the utility is exactly right. And this horse will never, a rope will probably never be swung off of it like that. It'll never be tied onto anything, but it may. You know, not with purpose that it may, but or that you will, to go as a practical matter of
doing some team roping or just playing with it. But you may come into circumstance just like you in the backcountry in the Bob Marshall Wilderness is a big old wilderness and it's vast. You never know when you're going to need a skill that horse already possesses. And so it's about making that horse as safe as possible and as utilitarian or a using horse, as Dad said. There's a lot of training that goes into that leads up to this. Now, I got to apologize for the, she is not a very good model for this, believe it or not. I mean, I've had her since the end of July, and she's a snotty, spoiled mare. And I love mares. Don't get me wrong. I'd rather ride a mare than a gelding because they have that drive. They have got a drive to them. Look at the difference between Lonza and most any of your other geldings. Oh, they will, if you bond with them, and you can, when you train, you should bond, or if you don't, you're not training well. They will tear themselves apart trying to do what you ask them to do. Geldings will go along with the ride a little bit. You know, it's like, okay, yeah, fine, whatever. But not to the depth that a mare will. It's the rare gelding that will do that. So that's part of it. She's a mare. She's a 6-year-old mare, so she's a little older because she was small and dainty, and I didn't want to train her right away. So we didn't hurt her skeletal structure and let those long bones close at the growth plates so that we couldn't hurt her. And I'm not that small of a guy. I'm, with my mustache on, I'm about 235, 240 pounds. So I'm not small. And so a smaller horse I have to take care of. Now, same as a larger horse as well. But so letting her go a little bit longer lets them have the attitude that, you know what, I can do whatever I want. And that's where that snottiness comes in. And if the owner's not really good about being diligent about, hey, this is my space and you are the horse, I'm the lead here, then that even complicates it. That's kind of the case here. I shouldn't say that too loudly, but it's true. I mean, and you can see it in her behavior. She just wants to be in charge, and she clearly can't. So you're constantly working on her to put her in her place, and so that's that. But that's why the quality of that is not picture perfect, but it's real. It's what it is. That's what sometimes you go with a horse, and this is what you're going to get. This is how you have to handle them. And the more you do that, the better she gets. And she is, believe it or not, she's getting better all the time. So that's good. She's about ready to go home now. So that'll be really good to see her. But, how that training goes continues to the owner. What's a really good tale is when you can see that horse not be used for a year or two, which is really kind of a crime just when that happens. But at the end of that time period, the horse not be handled, you get on them, and they can do all of these things again, as you ask. They might be a little rusty at them, but they'll do them willingly. That is what it's all about.
That is what it's all about. And I really want to say that one of the things I most like about your training regime, Brandon, is that you involve the horse owner, because all too often you can work a horse really well and that horse responds to you perfectly. But then you pass the horse back to the owner, and it all goes downhill because that owner doesn't understand the need, number one, and may not be riding the horse consistently enough. And I think you're right, particularly about mares. If you're going to breed, there are times when you don't ride that mare. And that certainly has happened with Lonza. By the way, everyone, Brandon trained Lonza for me. I went over to his ranch several times and worked with him. And we went into the Beartooth Mountains for her first big trail ride. And I came back with that much more confident about what she needed and what I had to do to give it to her. But had I just accepted her and not had that interaction with you, I'm not sure I would have understood and handled her nearly as well.
Yeah, and that was a really good lesson for me years and years and years ago. Growing up, that was something that most everybody did. They just sent their horse to a trainer. Right. And then the implied message behind that is, well, the horse is going to get sent back, right? That the owner is not involved. And I saw so many times where a very good, well-trained horse from not from us, but from anybody out there. There's a lot of good trainers out there that do a good job. And I would see those horses go back, and pretty soon that person, that owner, is riding that horse, and small things are starting to happen, and pretty soon the whole thing comes unraveled And the next thing you know, they're calling somebody else to train this horse, or they've gotten themselves in a real bind where they've gotten injured or hurt, or they're going to sell the horse. And so there were a number of comments I heard from other trainers that said, I think I'm just going to get out of the training business. I mean, I turn around a good horse, and the next thing you know, the owner ruins them because they don't use them like they should, or don't really try to communicate with his horse, and I get blamed for it. And that can happen. And so that was a really good lesson for me to involve the owner, make them responsible for this, because ultimately you are. I had that horse for a very, very short period of time in their life. And so you involve that owner, and everybody has quirks. We all do, all humans, animals. I mean, we learn differently. We respond to different things. There's some things we're stubborn at times. There's all kinds of different personalities that I find out training these horses, and they're all different. And some horses will remind me of another horse that I like, oh my God, I remember that one 20 years ago. I'd forgotten the horse, but something will remind you or spur that memory of, oh yeah, that was just like this horse, and this is what we did or what I did. And so it's funny how those animals will remind you of others. But the point is, you have to be able to understand those quirks, those small personality traits, so that you can not only anticipate them, but then you can respond to them and know and understand why they're doing this, what to do to correct it, and don't let those little things build into larger problems that they just seem to build on each other, because these animals are like a 3-year-old child. The terrible 2s are one thing, but those horrible 3s are something else. And as a horse gets older, bigger, smarter, stronger, us couple 100-pound humans don't stand much of a chance against a 1,100-pound animal like that. When they figure out that, hey, I can run this show, you can never let them think that. You have got to run the show.
And horses are smart enough to know who does and who doesn't. I find it very interesting. You bring up Lonza. Lonza's a big, pushy mare, and she will push everybody around. She tries it with every new employee. She wants to have her way. Yeah. And if they give it to her, then she's going to have it the whole time. And the interesting thing is, I go out there and she doesn't ever try this stuff with me. Yeah. And over the years, I've had horses that, I don't know if you remember, Cool Do was a POA. Yeah. Ponies can be really pushy too, let me tell you.
Very. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Shetland ponies, even the small ones. I've heard that if you buy that for your kid, that's a form of child abuse when you make them ride a pony. So.
Well, that was Cool Dude. He was a POA, but he would give everybody a rough time. Now, he always took good care of children, but to get him to go to the vet or get him into the trailer, people had a terrible time. But all I'd have to do is show up in the driveway, and he'd look at me and say, "Okay, game over. I'm getting in."
They do. They are they're much smarter than we give them credit for. Yep. Much smarter. Yep.
So there's a couple other things that I thought was really nice that Braden had you show people reining from the rider's perspective. And there's a big difference between the direct reining and the neck reining, and where you hold your hands and the way you use it. And one of the things, here at Dunrovin, because I deal with a lot of very inexperienced riders and a lot of people who will never be on a horse again and haven't been on a horse before. And so I always tell them, one of the things that I have noticed is that beginning riders, if they want, particularly in direct reining, if they want the horse to go to the right, they pull the rein to the right. And which is just what you want to do is pull it back. So I always tell people that bit in the horse's mouth is like a handlebar on a bike. And if you're on a bicycle, and you want to turn to the right, you don't pull your handlebars to the right, you pull it back, which also means your left hand has to give a little on the other side. Right. It's like a bicycle. But then when you go to neck reining, it's not.
Right. At all.
At all. And you really have to have your hand up over the horse's neck to be able to do that efficiently. And if you watch good pickup riders at the rodeo, all of their hands are way forward, because that horse, there's a real need for people in the cow business and the rodeo business and even in the guiding business to have a hand free. And that's essential with neck reining.
No, that's right. Well, and the direct rein is fine for novices, or in your case where you're providing a service for someone who's never been on them. If you can keep a knee on either side of that horse, that's a win, right? And so that direct reining is so intuitive that it's okay, but you've also got one horse there that has had a lot of people that were maybe a little higher level than novice that could handle it. I think it was Whiskey and
Mickey.
And Mickey, and yes. But if you take, I think it was Whiskey, we were over at the neighbor's place there, Jan Souza, and Jan trained that horse and got on it. And you remember, she completely took the headstall off, and as I recall, and was able to rein that horse around with just the leg cues. So there was no reining needed at all after all of that. So they remember and they know who's who, just as you said earlier about Lonza.
Exactly right.
So yeah, they'll do it. And I've had a number of clients that have said, "Hey, I want my horse to rein with leg cues only. I've always wanted this." And I'm like, "Okay, are you sure this is what you want? Because I'll do it, but you have to maintain that, and you cannot really get sloppy with it. You really be paying attention, and I'll work you through it, and we'll have some lessons with your horse, and especially as they get done with their training." And I had a gal do that. She insisted, "Oh, absolutely, got to have one of your horses that are trained with a leg cues." So the horse was done, and I said, "Come on out for this final ride." And we took off up in the hills, and we left from the house. And I said, "Why don't you just follow me?" Did, and it was so funny because all of us, I could kind of see out of the corner of my eye, and I had to chuckle to myself because this horse, they were all over the place. Left and right, and just, they couldn't even walk on the trail right. And she got so frustrated within a very short time. She goes, "What is wrong with this horse?" And I said, "Well," and I was letting her struggle a little bit because she needed to see what he would do. And I said, "You need to take your legs off your horse and just widen your legs out a little bit." And the minute she did, boom, he just lined right out. And I said, "Now take whichever leg you pick and just lay it against," and that horse come around in a circle. And she's like, "Oh my God. And now I understand." So yeah, they can do that. They can be very, very good about what they want, what they need. And it's up to us to make sure that happens for them.
Exactly. And they mold to you. If you ride them a lot, I spent thousands of hours on power guiding, and he was very responsive to my leg cues, but he also he completely understood when I was just turning around and watching the people behind me. Even though he was very responsive to leg cues when I wanted him to be, he also understood when I was just turning around. I didn't want him to do anything besides go straight ahead, but I was turning around watching the people behind me. And, there's nothing better than wet saddle blankets for a well-trained horse.
And good correct ones. That's the important part.
Yeah.
You can put a lot of bad miles on somebody and make them worse.
Well, that's right. But if you're consistent, and I think that's where it comes. Power and I got to the point where I didn't have to even think about what I was doing. And I also wanted to tell people, I think one of the best things you showed me in teaching other people, I learned this from you. I learned a lot of things from you, but this is something that I make all people do. And this was kind of funny. Brandon had us get down on all fours, on our hands and our knees, and he would straddle us. And then he would ask us to tell him which way he was looking. And he wasn't moving his body. He was just looking, turning his head. And people don't understand how much that changes the pressure of the leg on your side. And I do that with people all the time now, because one of them, the looking where you want to go is such an important part of riding, because you're telling the horse an awful lot through your body with that.
Yeah. Well, and this has been said millions of times, but if they can feel a fly land on them, they can certainly feel your body movement, even just a little bit left or right. And they do. And that's a cue, and they listen to that. So it's extremely important that level of training come, because their awareness is there. It's just, you have to make it purposeful. And like you say, with riding Power or Denali or whoever you have in the lead, that really those horses, it really doesn't matter. They do understand kind of the situational awareness and the context of what you're doing.
Yep. And they're so valuable when you get a good horse that really knows all that, because that enables you to do so much more.
Oh yeah. Yep. No, that's right. You can, and do it subtly and do it easily without even something brand new. They will accept that because they trust you and they know that, you know, hey, anything's possible here. I can do whatever I want.
Yep, exactly. Well, Brandon, I just love this session because you're talking my language, and I love watching you train horses. I always learn something from you. But I think it's now time to go over to Ashley. I see that she's got her iPhone in place here, and I assume she's in the round pen with Mystery. We still have Augie's limping a little. That cellulosis is really still there. We're working on it. But one of the things I also wanted to mention to you and Ashley is when we do get Augie back, I'd like to start getting him used to a saddle so we can start getting him used to pulling. And
Yep.
so, yeah, we got some fun things ahead for Augie.
Yep. It's time. It's time for him to start getting some sacking, some of that work, some of that basic kindergarten type stuff. Because I'm working on a very simple design, and I'm toying back and forth which way to go with it to have a drag for you guys to feed some hay this winter, and it'll be something that James is going to grab the short straw on designing or on building. I'll design this thing so elaborate it'll be beautiful, but you know, if James messes this up, it's not my fault, right?
James is so congenial about all of this, and I know this will be fun for all of us. Thank you, Brent.
Right.
As always, I so enjoy talking with you.
Well, great. Well, thank you. Next time it might be something completely different that we do. It'll just be normal, mundane ranch stuff that we'll see if we can keep staying alive and breathing another day doing it.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, are you ready, Ashley, with Mystery?
Yeah. I'm actually here in the ranch office. I thought we were going to review the video that I filmed yesterday just for a couple minutes.
Great. Go right ahead. I'll hand Brandon off to you then, Ashley. Thank you again, Brandon. I look forward to next week. I look forward to every week with you. Thank you.
All right. That sounds really good, Suzanne. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.